Would you like me, we have about 10 minutes before lunch. Would you like me to do the audit committee report?
Yes, I had that as a relief. So let's save that till after our time certain, but let's go into the audit committee report. And Vice Chair.
Thank you. We only have one item for the board, and it's a prioritization request for a new audit. And so the motion from committee is that the board prioritize an internal audit to address questions associated with LEA use of educational service providers, including gathering information for additional action, and that the audit be added to the end of the approved projects list on the audit plan.
So the motion for the board from the audit committee is that the board prioritize an internal audit to address questions associated with LEA use of educational service providers, including gathering information for additional action, and that the audit be added to the end of the approved project list on the audit plan. Discussion to that motion. I'm not seeing any. Are you? Oh, thought I did. Board Member Lear.
Not so fast. I'm trying to make sense of what that last phrase means. So how soon will this come about? And is my short question.
So if you look in your packet, I believe the audit calendar is included as one of the backup pieces. I don't have it up in front of me right now, but it would be added to the end of the list.
And so help me just practically, because I don't have it in front of me either. Does that mean it'll take place in 12 months, 2 years? What's your expectation?
So I was going to see if Debbie Davis is online. Let me click into
I'm here, Brittany, if you'd like me to respond.
Thank you, Debbie.
Debbie Davis.
Yes, Debbie Davis, Chief Audit Executive for the board. So what that means, if you go to the second page of the audit plan, there are currently 3 approved projects. So the next audit that we would start, we anticipate starting in a month, is ProStart. After that would be the data reliability audit that was just prioritized by the board last month, and then the subrecipient monitoring audit. So we're probably looking 12 to 18 months before this audit would be started, unless the board chooses to change the prioritization.
Can I continue for a minute, Chair?
Yes, follow up.
I'm just really concerned, and I don't know how to fix this. That's why I'm just expressing my concern. I think waiting 12 months or 18 months on this will perhaps make it beside the point. When it's happening right now, it's been happening for 3 or 4 years. The board has not been able to get its hands around it, or arms around it. It's a bigger thing than hands. And I don't know how to fix that. Those other 2 items that you identified are also important. So I'm concerned that it doesn't, it'll be put off for 18 months conceivably. And then we'll have to deal with a new board and the new board's priorities, which is just a natural board situation. But do you have any suggestions for how that could start sooner? Maybe Debbie or Brittany?
Debbie or Brittany?
So this is Debbie again. As mentioned, the board has the ability to determine the prioritization. We're wrapping up 2 audits right now, and we anticipate starting another one in a month. So the question is, what is the audit that's of most value to the board? Right now, we've got ProStart and then data reliability, but does this new audit, should it jump to the top of the list? That's a question. Or should it be second on the list so that we'd get to it in approximately 4 to 6 months? We'd start it, middle of next year. We're a little bit limited on resources in internal audit right now while we have some staff dedicated to the school fees project. So it's just the reality of the resources in internal audit, but we definitely want to add value. So whichever of these projects is of most value to the board, I'd say that's the one that should be prioritized to start within the next month.
I'm sorry, one more follow-up comment or question, Chair,
Okay.
to get to the heart of this. Can somebody tell me, again, maybe Debbie, perhaps Vice Chair Cummins, perhaps Scott Jones, what's the value of the ProStart problem? I'm recalling it's a frustrating problem and a frustrating situation that's been going on for 5+ years, but what is the actual value of it?
So this is Debbie, I'll jump in. So the value or the reason why it's on the list where it is, it came out of an audit that the state auditor's office did, and they identified several risks associated with the audit, and then requested that essentially we do an audit to follow up on the risks they identified to consider the misuse of funds and that kind of a thing. So that's why it's first on the list, is just because it came from the state auditor's office and their recommendations of risk.
But you don't know the value of it. Is it $100,000? Is it $5 million?
I don't know if Talia's online, but I believe the ProStart, the contract that ProStart has with the state, it's over several years and it's a few $1 million. So depending on what comes out of the audit, it could be in the few $1 million range. How does that compare with if we have issues with data reliability? That's a question where in this case, where we know with educational service providers, in the past, about $20 million has gone to educational service providers. We know that amount will go up this year because more LEAs are using educational service providers this year with remote learning.
Yeah, that's my concern.
So
That's my concern.
and if I might just interject from being on the audit committee, there's a process and we've been trying to follow a process and doing the very best that we can. And so this introduces it onto the list, the LEA's use of educational service providers. And once it goes onto that list, as you have concerns, board member Lear, and you want to move that, as a board, we certainly can do this, but we're just kind of following our process protocol and getting it out of audit committee and bringing it forward to the board as a priority. It's, again, we have limited staff, but we're not taking it off the radar. In fact, it's going on the radar as a to-do. But
Would a motion be in order right now then to do that, or does the process direct that it's back to the audit committee to make that, to substitute or to move the priorities around?
well, I think if you, board member, want to move those priorities around, I think there will be some work that needs to be done to help support and get information to the board why it's relevant to move it up. And so and that can happen in audit or that can happen outside of audit.
Well, I
it
will
requires some work and some background to change a priority.
And I'll defer to your greater knowledge about the audit procedures, but it seems to me if there's a $20 million plus concern on number 3 and there's a $1 or $2 million concern on number 1 over a 6-year period, it feels to me like with the online proliferating, not growing less, it seems to me we ought to get to the heart of and the problem on number 3 pretty quickly, and it seems more important than ProStart. But I will defer to you if there is a process that I should follow in contacting the audit committee or bringing a motion next month.
And also it'd be good as we're moving these around, some of it has to do with money and some of it has to do with our students and outcomes also as what's best for our students. So it's not everything's tied to a dollar. So
which
I
still
appreciate your comments. Yeah.
which still suggests to me that the sub-recipient monitoring is more important because it affects so many more students than ProStart. But I will check with you later.
You bet. I'm looking forward to working with you. Okay, Board Member Hanson.
Thanks, and I'm hoping some of my fellow members on the audit committee can help me. I recall some discussion that this audit, or at least parts of it, might be picked up by the state auditor's office. And that was one reason that we might pause and see if that was going to go forward before we prioritize it. Is that correct?
Debbie?
For that
Davis?
question, Chair.
Debbie
This is
Davis?
Debbie.
Did you hear Board Member Hanson's question?
Yes. So essentially what the committee decided was to prioritize the audit while essentially at the same time, internal audit will reach out to the legislative auditor's office. They're currently doing an audit or several audits of the State Board of Education. And there was a question if in those audits that they're already working on, if they could pick up some of the concerns that we would audit in this audit. So the thought was, let's put it on the list, let's put it last, let's see what the legislative auditor's office is doing or willing to do. And then if we need to reprioritize, it could be reprioritized.
Thank you, Debbie Davis. So I'm not seeing any other hands raised. The motion before the board is that the board prioritize an internal audit to address questions associated with LEA use of educational service providers, including gathering information for additional action, and that the audit be added to the end of the approved project list on the audit plan. I'm not seeing any other discussion. So the motion's before us. Board members, please vote. The voting is complete and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Does that conclude your report, Vice Chair Cummins or Chair of the Audit Committee?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So board members, at this time, we're going to have our lunch break and we'll start promptly at 1:30. We have a time certain with Representative Melissa Ballard coming on board. So we'll see you at 1:30. Thank you.